We are back from break, and in this segment, we turn to Ron Paul news. There's been what I would consider another watershed moment in his tremendous 2012 campaign that's had a lot of victories, psychological and concrete. And that is the Veterans for Ron Paul rally, which was held at the White House. ABC News covered it, but only in their blog. They covered how current and former service members staged a rally outside the White House today in support of Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul. Several hundred troops and their supporters attended the event. At least that's what they reported after they corrected it. They made another classic Ron Paul mistake, as the media seems to get so much wrong in regard to his campaign, as they earlier reported that only dozens showed up. However, there were several hundred comments in their own article pointing out their mistake, and they were forced to create an update and a retraction, where they said a previous version of this blog post incorrectly listed the number of attendees at the event. They, of course, regret the error, but they also cite the fact that Ron Paul has an unusually high percentage of supporters in the military as compared with the other candidates, and it is important that they covered it. But the larger establishment media did ignore this march. People like Adam Kokesh led it. It was joined by all kinds of military people, and they're really speaking out and saying, we don't agree with where this foreign policy is going. Among other things, we don't want a new war with Iran. And here's footage of that rally, the stuff you didn't see on the mainstream news. It's this imagery of active duty and former veterans coming together, saying no to the war, saying yes to Ron Paul, that the media chose not to show you. You didn't see these images. And I don't know if it's in this clip, but they dramatically did an about face outside the White House, symbolizing their opposition to Obama's continuation of the war. And they had a moment of silence for all the soldiers who've died in combat under Obama's term, and furthermore, of all the soldiers and former soldiers who've committed suicide as they've come to grips with very strong, very tough to deal with emotional issues. And we're going to be joined by Adam Kokesh momentarily to discuss that even more. But Steve Watson has put out a report that even defense contractors are supporting Ron Paul for president. We've already covered how the military, the active duty military, have contributed more to Ron Paul than any other candidate, way more than Mitt Romney, way more than Santorum, way more than Newt Gingrich, and even more than Obama. But he even has the support of defense contractors. Why is that if Ron Paul wants to freeze military spending and stop the corruption? Well, it's because it's from individual donors, people who understand. Mitt Romney actually does have a lot of defense contractor donations, not that far behind Paul's numbers. But if you look at the number of donators, that's where the real story is. Ron Paul had at least 824 individual contributors who averaged about $215 per person, almost certainly regular people working for working stiff wages, while Mitt Romney's contributions were fewer individuals and a higher dollar contribution, I think more than $800 if I read this article correctly. And that tells a story in itself. Obama's got a lot of contractor contributions too, but none of them as much as Ron Paul. People understand where this is going. Of course, it was in Defense News on February 20th of this year. It says Ron Paul may not support increasing defense spending, but he's certainly receiving the support of those who work in the defense industry. And then they go on to cite FEC filings that record just more contributions, more than $177,000 for Ron Paul. Will the media begin to report on this? Is that dam breaking? And of course, here is the chart of the military donations for 2011. As you can see at the bottom, Ron Paul has 95,000 donors, Obama 72,000. But the other GOP candidates, Romney has only 13,000 in donations from active military. Gingrich and Santorum even less. Santorum not even breaking 1,000. Is it any wonder with the kind of foreign policy they're pushing versus the vision Ron Paul has for this country? And so we are joined now by Adam Kokesh to talk about the march by the troops for Ron Paul and the effect it's had. Thanks for joining us, Adam.
Hey, my pleasure.
So give us your overall impression of the event, how many people turned out, and let's talk about the various factors of media coverage on this, because I think it's become significant.
Sure, no, I appreciate that. And it has become really significant because what we saw yesterday was just the warm-up, just the start for Veterans for Ron Paul 2012, because the message of the event was Ron Paul is the choice of the troops. And if the Republican Party isn't willing to listen to that message, if we can't get Ron Paul the nomination, and we can't ensure that he is our next commander-in-chief, then it might all be for naught. And so we are going to be marching on the Republican National Convention in Tampa Bay later this year. What we did yesterday was blow a hole in the military-industrial complex, in the establishment. And I apologize for my voice being a little rough here, but we had an incredible time with over 400 troops that marched in that formation, active duty soldiers and veterans. We also had several squads from Fort Meade that were there, from the intelligence community within the military, who were in civilian attire and in their attempt to observe the regulations to the T, only participated as observers alongside the formation. But we had a lot of active duty guys marching there with us, so we were very grateful for that. But like I said, we blew a hole through this thing that a lot of other veterans and active duty troops are going to be following us through. There were a lot of people announcing their support internationally for this. Guys and gals at bases overseas made videos to promote this event. So now, since we did something in a month and a half of preparation and planning with just two guys, myself and Nathan Cox, when we started this thing, and we ended up with, like I said, somewhere between 400 and 500 in this formation, and thousands that would have been there if it wasn't for the warning from the military. Maybe if we had had a little more help from the mainstream media. But when we go in Tampa, we go march in Tampa, we're not starting with two veterans. We're starting with thousands. We're starting with over 500 that were there yesterday that were willing to show up, to do the work, to get the word out, to support Ron Paul. Now we've got 6 months. It looks like we're coming to a brokered convention after the first round of voting in Tampa Bay. Mitt Romney is most likely not going to be the nominee, and all of those delegates at the convention are going to be unbound delegates at that point. And for the second round of voting, they're going to get to vote their conscience. And we're going to be there as Veterans for Ron Paul 2012 surrounding the convention. We're going to be marching on the RNC. And if they want to disregard the voice of the troops, if they want to say they support the troops, but we're not going to listen to them, they're going to have to do it to our faces in Florida.
Well, you mentioned it in passing, and I know our InfoWars readers know, who check the website every day, but other people may have missed it. They sent out a memo warning people not to show up in uniform at this event, trying to intimidate them out of their free speech and their right to political expression. Why is the system so afraid of troops coming together in support of Ron Paul? Maybe it's an obvious question.
Well, there's one thing in particular about what we did yesterday that I think particularly discredits the entire paradigm of our current foreign policy and the strategy of policing the world and liberal nation building in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that is that when we got to the White House, we did an about-face and a symbolic repudiation of that foreign policy to turn our backs on the White House and President Obama. But at that point, we held a flag-folding ceremony and held a hand salute to a folded flag for as many seconds as troops who have committed suicide while Barack Obama was their commander-in-chief. And that alone, the fact that those statistics are in record numbers right now, the troops are coming home and not just getting out and committing suicide, staying on active duty, and as Barack Obama is their commander-in-chief, committing suicide, taking their own lives in desperation because of their role in our foreign policy. It's not just the strains of repeated deployments. It's coming home and not being able to say that the buddies you saw get blown up by IEDs died for a good cause. And because of that, we got that email that was sent out by a Navy attorney just a few weeks or a few days before the event. We're really grateful for that. Like I said, we were cruising around all the bars, strip clubs, pawn shops, and tattoo parlors here in the D.C. area trying to collect all the active duty emails one at a time, and we're having a hell of a time of it. But this Navy attorney saved us all the work and sent out the email to promote our event. He even included the Facebook event page link in there. So, if anything, I think that helped. But more importantly, a lot of the guys who are on active duty, like Corporal Jesse Thorson, who spoke at the Ron Paul event in Iowa after he was cut off by CNN's live feed, mysteriously going out after saying Israel could take care of herself and we shouldn't be starting a war with Iran. Well, there are guys like that saying, screw it. It doesn't matter. You just drew the line in the sand, and we know what side we're on. We're on the side with Ron Paul. We're on the side of peace. We're on the side of freedom. We're on the side of defending America. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that the people who are willing to put their lives on the line to defend this country want a commander-in-chief who's going to be decisive, who's going to put America's security first, and who is only going to send us into harm's way with a clear mission where we can go win a war and come home, or as he would call it, a constitutional declaration of war. And the only candidate that even comes close to measuring up to that standard is Ron Paul.
The only one who comes close. And what you said sounds like a strong statement based on the way things have been going for decades, but it ought to be just common sense. Of course, it has to be a constitutionally declared war with a clear mission. I mean, just common sense. Now, it's worth mentioning that ABC News covered your rally. The Veterans for Ron Paul rally at the White House was their headline. And they reported, I guess by accident, as so many Ron Paul accidents happened in media coverage, that only dozens showed up. And then they got hundreds of comments pointing out how it was not dozens, it was many hundreds of people. And they were forced to retract and print a correction. Got it here. Update: a previous version of the blog posted incorrectly listed the number of attendees at the event, and they, of course, regret the error. The system is scared, but I think it's all just breaking through. I think it's too late.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, we blew a hole in this thing, and a lot of people are going to be marching through behind us. But as you pointed out, ABC covered the event. Now, when most people hear ABC News, they don't go, oh, yes, they have a blog, don't they? Because I think they also have a TV network, and they didn't provide any video coverage whatsoever of what was obviously a very visual presentation, a very visual event. They didn't do that. We got that story picked up by Drudge. We're very grateful for that. That mainstream token of support was picked up and was carried in the story in the news of the day. But it was really, if anything, token coverage. And as you pointed out, dozens. I mean, we were 8 squads across, 8 squads by about 50 deep. We're working on an exact count right now, but clearly it was maybe a little over 500, but between 400 and 500 for this formation. So to say dozens is an obvious slam and an attempt to downplay this event and to try to disenfranchise the voice of the troops, who we know have overwhelmingly supported Ron Paul in terms of campaign contributions, having received more than all other candidates combined from active duty. It's this inconvenient little fact that the mainstream media doesn't want to acknowledge because it doesn't fit in their paradigm.
But I think that's breaking too, Adam, because I know you've personally been covering that for months. I think you may have been among the first to at least take it into the national conversation. And here it is from today, or rather yesterday's news, Defense News: Obama Paul lead in defense contributions. Of course, Ron Paul has even more than Obama. And I think that media dam is breaking too. People are having to acknowledge what's happening. And I would imagine troops are even more upset than ever about our crazy foreign policy with Iran, Syria, the prospect of World War III all on the table.
Well, let me just say, there are a lot of people who have reacted to this and said, well, we got to get on the phone with CNN. We got to get on the phone with NBC and ABC and all the mainstream networks. And we got to beg them to cover our event. We have to beg them to connect with their audience, And I think when things like this happen and the mainstream media doesn't cover them, a lot of people are inclined to ask why and say, well, where did I hear about this? And, oh, I heard about it through YouTube. I heard about it from the Adam versus the Man YouTube channel. We got a video up there right now with really the quintessential summary of the march in terms of the action shots for that. We heard about it from InfoWars. We heard about it from the internet. And I just want to say that you can't trust the mainstream media to give you the full picture. You can't trust the mainstream media to give you the information that you need. So don't go begging to them. Don't go crying to those dinosaurs of the old corporate media. Start tuning in somewhere else. And no one can be trusted to give you a complete worldview. But I very much appreciate Alex Jones for bringing me on InfoWars last week, for everybody with InfoWars Nightly News for helping promote this event, for bringing me on tonight. Because you're showing that you're the ones that care about the people, that you're the ones that care about delivering an honest message. And I think your listeners and your viewers are smart enough to know that they can't trust any single source, even yours. And I encourage everybody to consume news with a critical mind, to get their news from a variety of sources. And I'm not, with Adam versus the Man, presenting an entire worldview as Alex Jones is, but you can do that. You can look at Infowars.com. You can listen to the Alex Jones radio show. You can get a sense of, at least from Alex Jones, this is the essential information that I need to know about what is going on in the world today. I hope to be expanding my operation personally into that and adding a radio show or a podcast. And if I can just get one more plug in, AdamVersusTheMan.com is where the conversation about that is happening at our forums. But like I said, I'm grateful for Alex Jones. I'm grateful for everybody at InfoWars for really doing the job of the people's media when the mainstream media, when the establishment corporate media isn't doing its job. But, I almost hesitate to say Alex Jones versus the mainstream, because now your operation there is turning into something that is so powerful and so massive that you're rivaling the mainstream, and the mainstream is turning to the internet. And that's where the future of independent media is. That's where the future of information.
And I appreciate the plug and everything, Adam, for InfoWars. I want to bring this up because I was at the event with Alex over the weekend. He spoke in Dallas to a packed house, and a lot of those people were military because they came forward in the question and answer sessions. And Alex mentioned it in the speech, too. Who has ever seen a pro-Mitt Romney sticker, a pro-Gingrich sticker, a pro-Santorum sticker? They're a rare find, if anywhere, out there. And the people in the military came forward to say the same thing, that they're talking to people at the base. Most of those who support any candidate are behind Ron Paul. And in particular, many of them are outraged and very upset about the NDAA, and more than ever awoken to the issue of not complying with the illegal orders, not going along with this slide into total despotism and tyranny. I think the military is waking up, and that's probably going to be the biggest factor in reclaiming our republic if they don't go along with this, that Oath Keepers mission.
Absolutely. I'm very proud to be a member of Oath Keepers. I think their mission is absolutely essential. And for those that don't know, Oath Keepers is encouraging people on active duty, both within the military and in the law enforcement community, to honor their oath to the Constitution before any illegal orders they may receive. But it's always so heartwarming when you get so many veterans together and active duty guys who are passionate about this cause, because it's a real community of people who have woken up to the message of liberty, who have woken up to the reality of our foreign policy. And it's a lot of guys who are hurting, too. It's a lot of guys dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, a lot of pain and regret, a lot of issues to deal with their own military service. And so to see that coming together last night was really beautiful, especially the after party. And I just want to thank everybody who made that possible: Ian Chiaffi, Gigi Bowman, and all the artists, Amy Allen, Jordan Page, Golden State, Rebel Inc. for coming out. Really, they just played their hearts out for us last night. Obviously, I lost my voice mostly singing along, but I want to share one exchange that I had with a young active duty Marine, Lance Corporal, who is in the intelligence community. I won't really say anything more to reveal his identity, but he's in a unit with about 520 Marines, and he has access to SIPRnet, S-I-P-R, the internet, the government's secret internet for military and government purposes. And he said that was what turned him to Ron Paul, the things that he was seeing going out over the internet, the secret internet, that is, reports from commanders in the field talking about incidents that were going to get covered up, things that they knew they couldn't release to the public. And what he told me, and this is really just heartwarming for me in a personal sense, I guess, he said that of the 520 Marines in his unit, every single one of them knew me by name as a result of this event, and most of them were Ron Paul supporters.
It's great, Adam, what you put together with this event. We're glad it's going to move forward with other events. I hope it becomes like a We Are Change and Oath Keepers thing, where it's decentralized and people everywhere are talking about this issue. I think it's time to hear from individual military members. We've heard from the sellout scumbag people at the top military brass level who just go along with these hijacked foreign policy agendas. I think it's time we hear from the real troops who've been on the ground, seen all the hypocrisies and abuses. And I think that conversation, even if people don't totally agree with where we come from at InfoWars or where you come from at Adam versus the Man, I think that conversation will lead to the real answers.
Absolutely. But let me just say one final plug here, because this is really important. It's not just the ongoing thing. We have a certain sense of urgency right now with Ron Paul running for president, the opportunity that represents, like one that we have never seen before in human history, to make the most powerful man on the planet the one who would exercise the least amount of power over you. And we are marching on the RNC, the Republican National Convention, in Florida, August 27th to August 30th, as Veterans for Ron Paul. So to all the veterans and active duty members in the audience listening right now, watching this, please mark your calendars. Prepare to be in Tampa Bay in Florida, August 27th to the 30th. At some point in there, Veterans for Ron Paul 2012 will be a presence. We will be marching on the convention, we will be making it clear to the Republican Party that Ron Paul is the choice of the troops. And if they want to nominate someone else and slap us all in the face, they're going to have to do it right in front of us, right in front of the national media, in front of the entire world, and reveal that the neocons, the establishment, the party hacks don't support the troops.
It's going to make such a mockery of all their demonization of Ron Paul and his foreign policy. Thanks for joining us, Adam. Adam versus the Man, and what, March to Washington? Is that still a viable website?
You know what? We have a Facebook page, Veterans for Ron Paul 2012. I've got my page, and of course, AdamVersusTheMan.com. I apologize. We haven't had the first official planning meeting for this. We just decided last night that, well, I just decided that I was going to be doing it and going to invite people to join me. So we're going to be figuring out the framework for this and putting out the call. We're going to need people to help spread the message every way we can and to get their butts down to Florida.
Well, we'll talk to you in the future, Adam. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And we're going to take another break, but we'll be back with more. Stay tuned on the InfoWars Nightly News.
Greetings, fellow Info Warriors. Alex Jones here, announcing the first of many trips that I'm going to take across this wonderful United States that we live in. And we get so busy here at Infowars.com, the nightly news, the daily radio show, the documentary films, and all the other things we're doing that I tend to never go out and give speeches anymore. And I've got a lot of ideas bubbling around in my head about the history of the New World Order, what makes them tick and how to defeat them. So I'm titling this key speech I'm going to give. It'll run around 2 hours long, Blueprint to Defeat the New World Order. And we're also going to have a surprise premiere of a short documentary film we've been working on at the event. First off, I'm going to be going to Dallas, Texas, Sunday, February 19th, 2012, to the historic Lakewood Theater. And the next Sunday, February 26th, I'm going to be in Orlando, Florida. You can find out more about the events and buy tickets at Infowars.com/events. Now, unfortunately, every event I've ever had, we've had to turn people away. So get your tickets early at Infowars.com/events. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in this world. And the craziest of all is this explosive awakening. I can't wait to meet you and shake your hand. I'll see you in Dallas and I'll see you in Orlando. Infowars.com/events.